Welcome to the Ringer NBA Show. I'm Chris Vernon. Joining me on this Tuesday is not Kevin Obama, a.k.a. Kevin O'Connor. He is on assignment. John Gonzalez from TheRinger.com filling in. John, how you doing?
What up, Verno? How's things?
Thanks for coming on today. All right, so last night, the events of last evening, I went to the Grizzlies-Blazers game, got home last night, and I'm sifting through everything that took place, and by far, the overwhelming topic to me was Danny Ainge saying, maybe the world is flat. That was the funniest thing. I could not believe that to me, it's a sneaky great moment of the season, which is the general manager president of the Boston Celtics after they win 16 in a row and were taken to overtime by the Dallas Mavericks, tweets out that maybe the world is flat in honor of his star player, Kyrie Irving, who has 47 points, staves off a loss, and now the Celtics have 16 in a row. What'd you think?
I don't know if the world is flat, but it definitely belongs to Kyrie and the Celtics right now. We can't stop talking about these guys. I know that a lot of people outside of Boston would prefer it, but listen, they keep winning this way. And we talked about their schedule coming up on the Monday Heat Check pod with Juliet Littman. Shouts to Juliet. Verno, this could go on for a little bit. And you mentioned Kyrie. I saw this on Twitter this morning, courtesy of Basketball Reference. Kyrie is the first Celtic since Larry Bird to have 45 or more points and 5 or more assists in a win. That's a long time. He put up an amazing line. They were down 13, Verno, and they came back to win it in overtime. These guys are killing it right now.
Yeah, I one of the things that I thought of last night when I was watching all the Kyrie highlights was there was that article earlier in the year where Isaiah Thomas said in no uncertain terms, they're going to regret this. And that ran through my mind last night. I was like, I'm not real sure about that. I love Isaiah Thomas. Right. He was the king of the fourth and all that, but I'm not sure they're going to regret it. It doesn't appear that they are regretting any of their moves so far. Now, here's the sneaky thing that nobody talks about. Okay, they're not, it's impossible to be better than 16-0, right? But you do have to wonder, what if Hayward was in the lineup?
It would be killer. I mean, they've already got the best defensive rating in the NBA by considerable margin. Their average point differential, they're beating their opponents on average by 8 points per game. I mean, that's really a considerable margin. Only the Rockets and Warriors have been better so far on average point differential. This is a really good team, Verno, and you bring up the Gordo part. I mean, my God, if they had him too and they could phase him in, and I mean, what would that do for their rotations? I'm sure Brad Stevens would figure it out, but they'd be so much deeper than they already are. They already are a really deep team. So this Celtics team, I think, there was a little bit of panic after Gordon Hayward went down, and rightly so. But what we're seeing now is that this is a legit contender, not just in the East, but overall. I mean, the Warriors obviously are by far and away the favorites, but you have to at least consider the Celtics in the conversation now.
And when everybody takes an eye towards the future, I think most people thought it would most likely, some may like Toronto or Washington, but generally I think all the predictions were that there would be a Cavs-Celtics collision course. In fact, I think that's pretty much what everybody projected to be. And then in night one, Gordon Hayward got hurt, and it was then known that all right, the Celtics, they're gonna have to rock without him. And then that all changed. It was it's wide open now, and somehow they're 16-2, and the blessing in disguise that's not exactly in disguise is that you've got these young guys in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. I mean, they're playing big minutes, and this is just so intensely valuable for them even going forward, right? And the fact that they are, not only are they not costing their team wins by being young guys that are getting big minutes, they're helping them win every single night. It feels like they just totally nailed both of those draft picks, and they play together so well.
They've been killing it. I mean, look, I'm loath to give Danny Ainge and the Celtics any more credit than they've already gotten, but they deserve it. And by the way, how ironic that KOC, I don't know what he's doing. He's sunning himself. He's on a beach somewhere. He's got his feet propped up. He's got a drink in his hand with a little umbrella in it. He takes off today. This is the day of all days that the KOC should be out here trumpeting his favorite team.
He said he was, and he always tries to act like it's not his favorite team.
Yeah, he's impartial about the Celtics the way my mom is impartial about my career.
All right, here we go. All right, so last thing on the Celtics. Do you think, and this is the most important thing, do you think that Kyrie Irving, when he saw, because his name's tagged, and all his buddies, told him about it if he didn't see it himself originally, do you think that when Danny Ainge said maybe the world is flat, the tweet that everybody started laughing at last night, do you think Kyrie Irving thought that was funny?
That's a good question. Kyrie's a weird dude. I think everything is turning up Kyrie right now. I think he's probably laughing right along with everybody else. I mean, you mentioned it. When they made the trade, everybody went, well, now we're going to see, because Kyrie wanted his own team. And like, what would it mean if Isaiah finally gets healthy? Right now, he only has one working hip. I mean, if you're Boston, everything is smiles and laughs, and you're having a great time. I think he's probably enjoying it.
Let's talk about the team he left, Cleveland. Mm-hmm. And it is every once in a while that you'll be looking up at a scoreboard and you will see a score like last night where they absolutely thump the Pistons. And it's like, all right, like every once in a while they'll show you what they're capable of, right? On the night that they've really got it going. And last night was one of those nights. We, at the very beginning of the season, first couple of weeks, were spent on dissecting them, what's wrong with them, what's wrong with Ty Lue, and what's wrong with, and wow, I can't believe that they signed Derrick Rose and Dwayne Wade and all these guys and Jeff Green. It's not working out. Do you look at something like last night and say that's the outlier, or do you look at it and say, all right, that's clearly what they're capable of, and there was a lot of overreaction early in the season?
I've been preaching caution and patience with the Cavaliers proponent. Look, they've got the best player in the world on their team, and the regular season, as we've learned, year after year after year, matters not at all to LeBron James. He literally, at the end of last year, the Cavaliers had a chance to get the number one overall seed in the East, and instead he decided to rest and just gifted it to the Celtics, basically saying, we don't care about this. We're going to beat you anyway. And then he did. I think that this is just a warm-up for them. And the Pistons, by the way, got smacked. All the people who were talking about the Pistons, one of them was our producer, Isaac Lee. Shouts to Isaac. He's taking some L's. That poor guy. Not only is he taking some L's with the Clippers, but he was telling me all yesterday about the Pistons, at which point the game started, and I got a text from him, and he goes, I might have been wrong about the Pistons. It's the Cavs, man. It's the Cavs, and it's the Celtics, and it's everybody else in the East.
And here's what we do have to remember, that once upon a time, and yes, it was a decade ago, but people can talk about the supporting cast with LeBron, but once upon a time, we saw LeBron James with, this is the rest of the roster: Shannon Brown, Boobie Gibson, Drew Gooden, Larry Hughes, Sarunas Ilgauskas, Damon Jones, Dwayne Jones, Donyell Marshall, Ira Newble, Sasha Pavlovich, Scott Pollard, Eric Snow, David Wesley, Anderson
Eric Snow.
Hey, that team was in the NBA Finals.
It's right. Exactly. Like, who's the guy on that team that's the common thread to? You're 100% right. Yeah. Eric Snow, my God, I watched him in Philadelphia. I can't believe he was on that team. No. I mean, every time that a LeBron team gets off to a slow start, we wonder. And at the end of the season, we're going to go, okay, this is an imperfect Cavs team, but it doesn't matter because they still have the guy.
By the way, the third, fourth, and fifth leading scorers in the playoffs on that particular team were Drew Gooden, Larry Hughes, and Sasha Pavlovich.
Larry Hughes, who the Sixers took over Paul Pierce. Still regretting that one.
I gotta rep Larry Hughes. I watched him play in high school in St. Louis. So
he was fine. He was
always
fine.
Been a Larry guy.
He wasn't a Hall of Famer. He was fine.
You believe that drafting Larry Hughes over Paul Pierce was a mistake?
Slight mistake. I think even Larry Brown might admit that now.
I think that's probably true also. All right, so we got to the Cavs. The other story, or one of the stories from last night, was the Clippers. The loss streak reaches 9 in a row, and it has now reached the point where this is crippling towards your future prospects because they're now 5-11 on the year. And, the more that you start racking these up, you've got to go on a 6-game win streak just to get to 500. I mean, it is so hard to put yourself so far behind the 8 ball. I think people are kind of searching for answers. The easy one is, hey, they spent a lot of money on Danilo Gallinari, and he's not around. But let's turn to Isaac because he's the Clipper guy who's dying inside every single night. Why, in your mind, as a Clipper fan, why have the Clippers lost 9 games in a row?
It's tough, man. I mean, their point differential isn't very bad. It's minus 1.6, which is higher than the Pelicans and the Lakers, who are kind of in that middling 500 range, right? Like a team with that kind of talent, with Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, regardless of whether Pat Bev or if Gallinari are around, it shouldn't really matter about their health as long as Blake and DeAndre are healthy and they're playing well. I'm just going to keep rambling about how...
This is amazing.
This is
Vernon,
amazing.
What I really like about this is that you tossed it to him and asked him for his thoughts, and most of it was just heavy breathing, like he had been asked to turn his head and cough. It got really weird in the studio.
It's tough, man. That's all I can say. It's tough.
Oh, well, here's one of the things. You say it should be fine, but it's weird with so many of these teams. It feels like they lose one guy, like they might lose a starter or 2 starters. And this is what makes Houston so impressive and the record they have despite losing Paul for the length of time that they did. But they lose 1 starter or 2 starters and it just wrecks stuff, right? So the Grizzlies have lost Mike Conley and the Utah Jazz have lost Rudy Gobert, and you can go on, and obviously with the Clippers, right? They lose Gallinari, they lost Pat Bev for a stretch there, and some of these teams they are not good enough to be able to overcome loss of 1 or 2 starters for that matter.
No, it's not. I mean, like, especially with the Clippers, not having Gallo and having that extra offense definitely hurts them. I think also it's not impossible that we overrated what the Clippers could be sans Chris Paul. Yes. And look, I like Blake Griffin. I love the idea of Point Blake. We saw previous seasons when Chris Paul was out and Blake was sort of the focal point of the offense. He and DJ worked really well in that 2-man game. It's not the same this year. Pat Bev being out certainly didn't help. Gallinari being out certainly hasn't helped. They thought that they were going to get some sort of contribution out of Milos Teodosic. He still hasn't played. You're relying a lot for offense on Austin Rivers, son of Doc.
Oh, God.
Not good.
Yeah.
Christ.
No.
There's the heavy breathing again.
Yeah, I know. Once you get past, and obviously, listen, I laughed O'Connor off the show when he tried to tell me there could be a 5 or a 4 seed, right? Because I didn't see it. And here's the thing, like most nights, you got to be over 100 to win these games, right? And so if you're getting the 20 to 25 out of Blake, and then let's assume Gallinari was only averaging 13 in the 9 games before he went out, but let's assume he can be a 17, 18 point per game guy, right? Like, okay, so now we've added up to about 40 or maybe 45 on a good night on a regular, okay? Like, you've still got to find 50, 55, 60 more points on the rest of that roster, and on average, like every single night, and they're averaging 105 right now, but we see that is a come and go. They might have 116, and then they might have 90. Right.
Or they might have, as it turns out, I'm looking at the box score from last night, they might have 85 against the Knicks, which I don't think is going to do it.
I don't think that's going to do it either.
Yeah.
And I will say this is a weird year in the NBA. My buddy Tim Bontemps from the Washington Post texted me the other night. He was at a game, and we were talking back and forth about the way the league is right now. And I said, I was talking to him about the Western Conference and some of the teams I had seen already. And I said, outside of, like, we knew the Rockets and the Warriors and the Spurs were all going to be really good. We expected that the T-Wolves could be pretty good. And we certainly thought that Oklahoma City is going to be really awesome whenever it all clicks. And I still believe that. The rest of these teams, I really believe that, like, the rest of them, they are capable of almost anything.
Yeah.
There is a tremendous lack of consistency in play. Like it wouldn't shock me if some of these rat teams beat the Rockets one night and then the next night get blown out in Orlando. Like, it's just been a very, very strange year. And people can say parity, but the extremes. I mean, like, listen, just this past, within a week's time, I watched the Kings lose by 46 against the Hawks, turn around and beat the Trailblazers.
The Kings beat the Thunder earlier in the season. It has been a weird year. I won't have any NBA slander, though. I mean, you call them rat teams. That's fine. I look at it more like the glass half full, because I do see it sort of as parity. There's the top tier teams, the Rockets and the Warriors and the Spurs and the Celtics, and I believe eventually the Cavaliers, once they right themselves and start actually caring about some sort of regular season win-loss record. So at the end of the year. But everybody else, it makes for really interesting in-season viewing, because we've kind of gotten to the point in the NBA where, have gotten to the point in the NBA where it's 2 seasons. It's the finals, which is going to feature the Warriors and most likely the Cavs or whoever comes out of the East, but most likely the Cavs or the Celtics. And then it's the regular season, which is just everybody else playing each other and trying to make it somewhat relevant. And on a night-to-night basis, like you said, it could be some of these teams, cough up a really bad game, or it could make for a really interesting, unexpected outcome. I like it. It makes regular season viewing fun.
The other team last night that seems to get farther behind the 8 ball is Utah. Now, they're only 4 games under 500. They're 7-11, but they're 2-8 in their last 10. And one of the things that I asked O'Connor last week, I said, does this Gobert injury, which is possibly 4 weeks, possibly 6 weeks, who knows? He's going to get reevaluated down the road. Is that a killer towards their playoff hopes? And he immediately said yes. Right, that they are a team that they're not going to beat you with the regular firepower every night. And given that he is such an amazing defensive anchor, they can still be a tough team to play against on a regular basis. But they take another loss last night, and now, as I said, they're 2-8 in their last 10 games. What do we make of Utah? Is the in your mind the Gobert injury just a killer?
You're just going to just gloss over. You said they take another loss last night. You're not even going to say who beat them?
Oh, the Philadelphia 76ers.
Who beat them? Did the 76ers win again?
All right, let me say this. All right, I know you're a Philly guy. I am so over Philly fans this week. After I don't know if you saw this, but it was the Carson Wentz thing on Monday night. See, I'm a Cowboys fan.
Oh,
right?
You are. Oh, you're taking some on the chin recently.
No, well, I don't want to say mistakenly. At halftime of that game, I tweeted out, like, all I've heard all these announcers talk about is Carson Wentz, the MVP, right? I was like, yeah, right. And then, second half, Eagles start stomping them. It's like, old takes exposed is getting me. All these Philly fans are killing me. I'm like, wait, what was exposed? I was like, the guy's like 14 of 27 in this game. Like, stop it. And Collinsworth is just all over. I know this isn't the NFL show, but he's just like every friggin' dinky pass the guy throws, it's like, you just don't see second-year quarterbacks throw like. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. And so, but these Philly fans are friggin' relentless. Oh, God. It was way worse than when O'Connor, who was like the only person in the world outside of you and maybe 200 other people that were watching Philadelphia 2.5 years ago, he mocked me for Rashawn Holmes had played 150 total minutes. And I was unaware of his
Believe
work.
me, I'm aware of your lack of Rashawn Holmes knowledge.
And they smashed me on that.
I will say a couple of things here. That was a hell of a rant. Number 2, great Collinsworth impersonation. Number 3, the NBA show today between you and Isaac has become the NBA therapy show. I really like the way that this whole thing is going. I will stipulate one quick point before we go back to the Jazz. Philadelphia fans, when angry, are a lot to deal with. Philadelphia fans, when happy, even more to deal with. It's very rare when this happens.
Yeah,
they're going to be.
They got to go with too, right? Because they got to go with the Eagles and the Sixers simultaneously.
The whole town is even more obnoxious than normal, which is pretty obnoxious. So everybody just settle in because it's only going to get worse. Back to the Jazz, real quick. You mentioned would it be a killer for them with Rudy Gobert? Absolutely, Verno. They're 25th in offensive rating. Their defense obviously is their bailiwick. They're 7th, but 25th in offensive rating. You were talking about the Clippers and where they get offense from. Same deal with the Jazz. Donovan Mitchell, as a rookie, is asked to do a lot of heavy lifting. Right. I like Ricky Rubio. They were using him as a scorer for first point guard earlier in the season. Probably a bad idea. We're seeing more of that now. Rodney Hood still trying to figure it out. And here's the other thing. You look at their strength of schedule. 24th. It's not like they're playing a lot of really good teams right now. This is bad news for the Jazz.
Yeah, you see right now, I mean, there's only so much. Like last year, it felt like even with Hayward on the team, they get into these close games. There was a lot of ISO Joe last year, right? And ISO Joe is now, it hits everybody. Age hits everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like hell for them because I thought that there was a step taken possibly by Exum last year in the playoffs. He was really thrown into the fire. There was that one quarter against, and I'm grasping here, but there was the quarter against Golden State in one of the games that I thought they should have won, honestly, in that first round series where he was the best player on the floor. And so you could see those glimpses and I was like, maybe he can take the leap next year. And we forget they lost him right off the bat. And then losing Gobert, it's just a bridge too far.
Yeah, it's a shame. I do like that you remember that one quarter of good basketball by Dante Exum. And the only other people who remember it are Dante Exum and Dante Exum's family. So that's nice of you to mention that.
I think that's probably fair. I just remember watching the game being like, this guy can really do some stuff. And maybe, I'm not big on giving up on guys early anymore, especially point guards, because more so than anybody in the free world, I learned my lesson the hard way. And that is with the guy I cover all the time in Mike Conley.
Killer.
I never saw it. Never. The first 3-4 years of his career, I was like, this is why are they investing so much time and energy and minutes and money into this? And that's just wrong. And you see guys, some of these guys now, it's very strange. I'm seeing it every night when I'm going to games. It's 4, 5, 6 years till some of them really hit their stride. We saw it with, I know they lost last night, but we've seen it with Tobias Harris in Detroit. I'll tell you one that I saw last night that I thought was, I would have thrown the towel in. Well, I don't know, throw the towel in, but I certainly thought that I knew what the career of Shabazz Napier was going to be. He's gotten a lot better
recently.
He really helps them. Really helps them. There were moments where it used to be if Lillard wasn't on the court, it was like, oh God, they just got to wait they just got to keep looking at their watch until they can get him back out there. But Napier's giving him a little spark. He was pretty damn good.
Yeah, they've needed some offense from that team. Exactly what you were saying. Where are they going to get offense once they go to their bench? Right. And it's thin. I mean, look, I like E.T. I didn't like him when he was a Sixer. I liked him a lot when he went to Boston. And then he sort of struggled on and off last year. He does certain things. Scoring is not his bailiwick, though. It's not shooting from distance is not his thing. You're going to need some offense somewhere. We learned that it's never going to be Miles Leonard. He had the opportunity to go out and suck up a bunch of minutes after LaMarcus Aldridge left. It's not going to be him. Who else are you looking at? Pat Connaughton and Ed Davis. And it gets real thin real fast for that bench. So yeah, they need Napier to go out there and put up some points, and that's to their credit. You mentioned too with the Grizzlies and Mike Conley. I think Conley is consistently one of the most underrated players in the NBA because, as you said, there's certain teams that can't afford to lose one or two main guys. Mm-hmm. The Grizz are that team. Without Mike Conley, they just crater.
Yeah, it's tough sledding for sure. They needed a healthy Mike Conley and a healthy Marc Gasol. The other thing about last night, just seeing the Blazers in person, anybody could go pull this box score. The final rebounds was 60-35, and I was like, what in the world? And then I went this morning. They have been according to rebound rate.
You nailed that, by the way. It was exactly 60 to 35.
They're the best rebounding team in the NBA, which is shocking to me.
It is a little surprising. I mean, they've been Vonleh has been a surprisingly good rebounder for them.
Let me tell you the other one that'll blow your mind. They're second in defensive rating.
Yeah,
what is that? Like what with a backcourt of Lillard and McCollum? I get it. We're only like 15, 16 games into the season, 17 games into the season, but that is not what I expected. I did not look at that team and go, well, they'll be a great rebounding team and they'll be great defensively. And at least through 17 games, they have been.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, you look at that team and you expect them to be more of an offensive team, especially as you mentioned with their backcourt. That's what they do best. Net rating overall, they're 5th in the league, Verno. Yeah. Listen, you're preaching to the choir. My favorite team to watch, obviously, is the Philadelphia 76ers. But if I had to detach myself from geography and upbringing and conditioning, it's the Blazers. I'm literally wearing a Blazers shirt right now. Anybody who listens to the Heat Check pod knows how I rep hard for the Blazers. This is great to watch.
Here's a little story, too. You mentioned Turner because you had him in Philly when you were there. One of my friends, Ed Stefanski, who was once the general manager of the Philadelphia 76ers, also worked in the front office with Toronto. Once upon a time, I did an interview with him, and I just called him to the carpet on it. I'm like, what the hell was the Turner thing about, right? Because he was the second pick in that draft.
Yeah.
And, it's one of those moments where and I think a lot of people feel like this, and I think that, our boss, Bill Simmons, once upon a time wrote about when he sat down with Isaiah Thomas and he explained everything, it was he just murdered him for years and years. And when Isaiah Thomas sat down and explained it, okay, you may walk away and then when you digest all of it, it's stupid anyway.
Right.
But when he's explaining it to you, you're like, all right, well, at least it wasn't just 100% goofy. There was real thought that went into this. It was just, it didn't work.
Look, I wasn't an ET fan for the Sixers in that draft. I think Ed, if he had a chance to do it over again, obviously wouldn't have made that pick.
Well, my original point was it's interesting to hear from the side, okay, why does this happen? And there was basically an acknowledgement that they all knew that DeMarcus Cousins was the second best player in that draft. They all knew that.
Right.
But they were going to take DeMarcus Cousins over Doug Collins' dead body. And so it just wasn't happening.
I believe that. But also, a lot of teams screwed up that draft. I mean, if you look at that draft, Evan Turner went second. I think in retrospect, we all think, okay, well, DeMarcus must have gone third. No, he went 5th. Derek Favors went 3rd. Wesley Johnson went 4th. And then also Gordon Hayward went 9th and Paul George went 10th. So a lot of teams fucked up that draft.
That's for sure. All right, we got to take a quick break. Let us hear from the sponsors. And then on the other side, we're going to talk about the teams that are within 2 games of 500 and who we believe in and who we do not.
Buying tickets to sports and concerts can be complicated and confusing, but there is a better, simpler way to buy. With SeatGeek, with their seamless mobile experience, you can buy and sell tickets in just 2 taps. There's nothing quite like seeing your favorite team or musician in person, and SeatGeek will help you get closer to the action for a great value. SeatGeek saves you time and money by searching multiple ticket sites to compare prices and find amazing deals. And SeatGeek also has plenty of concert, comedy, and theater tickets available. Best of all, our listeners get a $20 rebate off their first SeatGeek purchase. To get your $20 rebate on tickets, download the SeatGeek app. Go to the settings tab and click add a promo code, and then enter our promo code. That's RINGERNBA. SeatGeek will send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase. Download the SeatGeek app and enter the Ringer code RINGERNBA today. All right, let's take a second to chat about our sponsor, Hotel Tonight, an awesome app for finding and booking great deals at great hotels. This is actually true. Sometimes you listen to the ads and you think, do people use these things? I used it. I was in Europe with my wife over the summer. We forgot because we're knuckleheads to book a room in Rome. Guess what? Hotel Tonight to the rescue. Didn't have to sleep on the street in Rome, which was way better. Also, The holidays are coming up, and you know what that means, lots of family time. But with the Hotel Tonight app, you can have the best of both worlds. Visit your family, but stay in a sweet hotel. No crashing on an air mattress in your old bedroom that your parents used to turn into a gym. You don't even have to wait until your family starts to drive you crazy. You can just get out of there right away. You can actually book a room up to 7 days in advance anywhere, and in certain select cities, you could do it as far in advance as 100 days, which means you can lock down your holiday hotel plans before you even head home. Or wait until the last minute if that's more your speed, like me, and make a break for it when Uncle Tony starts talking politics. Whether you need a room for tonight, the holidays, or beyond, you definitely want to download the Hotel Tonight app. Because while home is where the heart is, hotel is where the hot tub, room service, all kinds of other amenities are. So this year, pull out the pull-out couch and get a room with Hotel Tonight.
All right, Gonzo, let's start with the West first. These are the teams within 2 games of 500, and we'll talk about whether we believe in them or not. The 7 and 9s. I will let you speak on the Memphis Grizzlies because I'm around it all the time. I go to their games all the time. I'm seeing it live in person. They just cannot stop losing. As of recently, you mentioned the Conley thing and the absence of him being a real killer. It seems like right now, real quickly, I'll tell you, we all thought Rockets, Warriors, Spurs, Oklahoma City, Minnesota were going to be playoff teams, right? Mm-hmm. And then there was going to be a battle. Well, if Utah has fallen out of this, we think, and the Clippers are really behind the 8 ball now, you're talking about 4 of these teams for 3 spots, which are Portland, Denver, the Pelicans, and the Grizzlies, right? That's 9 teams.
Yeah.
If we throw out the Clips in Utah. So 3 of those 4, Portland, Denver, Pelicans, Grizzlies. Let's start with Grizzlies before we get to Pelicans. What do you think?
So this is a pretty simple binary for me. If they have Mike Conley, yes, I believe in them. And if they don't, I don't. I mean, right. We saw what happened when you extract Mike Conley from this team. They're 2 and 8 over their last 10. They just don't go the same way. I mean, at the beginning of the season, Verno, I think there were a lot of people outside of Memphis who maybe counted out the Grizzlies again. And we were reminded once more, when you have a healthy Mike Conley and you have a healthy Marc Gasol, they're a good team. They just figure it out. That's a really good combination. And also, like, their schedule to start, they had the 4th hardest strength of schedule to start. So it's not like they've been playing super easy teams. It's not been an easy road for them, but really it boils down. I like, by the way, Tyreke Evans looks like the Tyreke Evans we've always thought that he could be in the NBA since he came out of Chester outside of Philadelphia. And I love him. He is
clearly right now the best value that was in free agency. Clearly. I mean, he was that contract is crazy. I mean, it's a 1-year, $3 million deal. I mean, it's like a damn lottery ticket right now.
Can you imagine what they would look like right now if they didn't have him to add some offense and play a little bit?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, well, and so here's the thing, right? Last year, Mike Conley was out for a long time. He broke his back, and they went 8-1 without him. And
Crazy.
Now this particular roster construct is just not like, they still had the guys that were used to playing with each other all the time, the Tony Allen, Zach Randolph, Marc Gasol. And frankly, Marc Gasol has turned into a monster in the absence of Conley over the course of the past year and a half. Now, that has not been the case recently, but they're trying to get all these new guys into the mix, like Ben McLemore and JaMychal Green got hurt at the beginning of the season. They're trying to get him back in. And so the coach, David Fizdale, he's just searching for anything. I will say this, I'll know in a week because they play Dallas at Denver and Brooklyn are their next 3. And if they don't beat Dallas and Brooklyn, both which are home games, then that's going to tell you about what happens with that basketball team.
Yeah, that's. I think that's probably right. I mean, Denver's going to be a tough slog for them.
Right.
Tough to keep up with them. Brooklyn is like one of those teams where it depends on the night. But yeah, the Brooklyn and the Mavs games, if they're going to keep their head above water and fight until Conley come back, you got to have them.
Yep. Let's get to the Pelicans, who are 9 and 8. They have the 9th. They are 9th in offensive rating. They are 23rd in defensive rating. We've only seen one playoff iteration of Anthony Davis so far, and he was amazing against the Golden State Warriors. But this is kind of hung around his neck the fact that he is, we're several years into the career and his team has not necessarily been good. I think it is tremendous malpractice the way they have built around him over the course of his career. So I don't think he is fully to blame. And he's also had his share of injuries and availability has been an issue. That being said, they're 9-8 right now. I think people thought that if I told people at the beginning of the season they could be a 500 basketball team, I don't think that would have been incredibly shocking. But what do you make of them? What do you think?
In what you said about the Blazers, where you said, I'm sort of surprised with how good they've been defensively. Yeah. I think that it's interesting that the Pelicans have two guys who should be good rim protectors and should be able to play good defense and lock down the paint. And yet, really, it's been the reverse, that the offense has been the thing that's driven them to wins this year. Initially last year, I wasn't sure about the fit with Boogie and with Anthony Davis. And, I didn't think that it made much sense. Now watching it this year, when you have Boogie popping out and just taking as many threes as he possibly wants to take in a game, I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's sustainable long-term over the course of the season. It's been a hell of a lot of fun though. It's been fun to watch. I wonder though, if they, let's say that they hover around 500 as the trade deadline approaches. Do you keep Boogie or do you jettison him and try to build for the future and get something more around Anthony Davis? Or do you take a shot and just, try to get into the playoffs and see what happens?
Well, now that they are winning, I actually think, or at least that they are, as of today, a playoff team. I think if they're a playoff team, they ride it out. That's what I would tell you.
Yeah.
If they're in that mix and they really feel like they're going to be one of the top 8 seeds, then they ride that thing out. If they start faltering, if they lose 8 out of 10 or whatever happens, then yeah, I think you start to think, okay, this, whatever we got going right now, it's not good enough. And so we need to make a move. And I do wonder, when you get to the playoffs, I can absolutely see a scenario, if they are there, where they throw out a lineup with Rondo and Tony Allen and those two guys, and nobody on the other team can get a rebound to say ever. Yeah. You have maybe the two best guard rebounders. Now they will never hit an outside shot, and those two guys, Cousins and Davis would have to do literally everything. You're talking about, when you're talking about half court grinded out basketball and just being able to when the other team misses, you get the ball, and when you miss, you get the ball. They kind of weirdly have some goods to be able to do that and really make life hell for some good teams, possibly.
I think that the Pelicans being 9-8,
yeah,
and people going, this is maybe the best Pelicans team we've seen in a while, says a lot about what the Pelicans have been.
Yeah, and I also the Cleveland win when they stomped them. Mm-hmm. That was rather shocking. But fair is fair. When you go through their schedule and you see what their 9 wins were, by far the most impressive was the Oklahoma City one that happened on Monday night.
26th in strength of schedule. They have not had a tough road so far.
No. All right, so the Pelicans, I think that does it for the Western Conference. Oh, no, Oklahoma City. They're within 2 games of 500, so we at least got to mention them. I was very high on them. And I think they are, the point differential is still pretty good. I think it's a matter of time before they figure it out. I am shocked that they have been as awesome defensively as they have been. But if they have been that good defensively, I look at it and I say, all right, well, they're clearly capable of being really good defensively. And I think the offense will figure itself out eventually. Once they all figure out how this team's going to work, I think they can figure that out and be pretty devastating.
Yeah, the 3rd in defensive rating, Verno, 6th in net rating. I look at this team and when you were saying, some of those other Western Conference playoff contenders, who would I rather have? I think you're right. I believe that they will figure it out. They've got 3 top tier players. If I had to choose between them and the Nuggets and the Pelicans and the Grizzlies, I'll take the Thunder out of that group. I just think that there's just too much talent. They've got 3 guys that are better than, almost everybody else on those other teams.
Let me tell you what is super shocking to me we touched on Tyreek Evans. I thought for sure one of the best free agent signings by a wide margin was Patrick Patterson. He has been horrible. Like, not bad. Horrible. He has a PER of 6. 6, man, 6. The league average is 15. His PER is 6. He's averaging 3 points a game while he is shooting 34% from the field and 33% from 3. And I thought he was going to be a great fit with those guys as a role player. I was a huge fan of his in Toronto, and I did not see that coming. I thought that was going to be a really good fit and a great signing, and he has just been beyond atrocious.
While we're doing the therapy session here on the NBA show, I feel like I should sit you down and be the bearer of bad news.
Yep.
I think you might have expected too much from Pat.
No, stop. Come on. He did 3 points, a PER of 6.
I think your expectations were a little high.
Stop. What do you mean my expectations were a little high?
He's fine. Yeah, like he was. I liked him okay.
This guy has
in
been
Toronto.
he has been a winning player, though. He's been a winning player.
All right.
Like, having him out on the court has been a benefit to teams.
Yeah.
And it just has not been.
I don't know. Like, there are certain guys in the NBA where I watch them play and I go, okay, they're in the NBA. And he's in that group. Like, I have no expectations for Pat.
I just thought, listen, the last 2 years, he was a 36% and 37% 3-point shooter while shooting almost 4 a game. He's been a good 3-point, 37% from a backup power forward who, will not get pushed around underneath the basket. It's pretty damn good, but he's been terrible.
I'm going to get you a Pat jersey for Christmas. I'm sending it out.
I don't want it. No, I don't want it.
No, I'm getting it's happening now. It has to happen. You're the number one. You've got Pat footy pajamas and like a poster above your bed.
I'd rather you get me a pair of the Russell Westbrook skinny jeans than a Pat Patterson jersey.
All right, deal.
All right. Here's the Eastern Conference. All right. So here are the teams that are within 2 games of 500 and whether or not we believe in them. I don't even want to let you talk about the Sixers, honestly.
You know what? They just keep soaring. Like, at the end of the season, we'll talk about them plenty. But you're right. We've already talked about them too much. They're probably even too good for us to discuss on this show.
I'm gonna cut your mic.
let me tell you something.
Go ahead.
Old Fultz needs to buy all of them a Christmas gift, a real one, because they have totally taken that like off the radar. Right? It's not like, oh God, he was the number 1 pick in the draft and all that. Like, all anybody talks about is how amazing Simmons is, how amazing Embiid is, how fun they are, the games that those guys are having. And like, it's almost like if they weren't playing well, that would be a big topic and there would be a lot more pressure on him. But given the success, and especially the success of those 2 guys that the process, as it were, reaped, I think taking a lot of pressure off Fultz.
Yeah, no, those 2 guys are almost, and the way that this team is performing, they're almost like they serve as blinders for the rest of the NBA to ignore Fultz. You're 100% right.
All right, enough about the Sixers.
Yeah, see, look what you did. I said it when we were going to talk about him. All of a sudden, we're talking about him.
All right, let's talk about a couple of the 7 and 9s real quickly.
Yeah.
Charlotte, they're 7 and 9. They're 16th offensive rating, 12th defensive rating. So, like, you're just the record is middle of the pack.
Yeah.
The ratings are middle of the pack.
Yeah.
Clifford says some very, disturbing things after the game. Like, we literally have no identity. We don't know what we are. Are we an offensive team? We a defensive team? I thought that he would be able to get to Dwight Howard. As always, Dwight Howard's getting a ton of rebounds. But there was always the concern, as Simmons calls it, the Dwight Bola virus could infect Charlotte. They're just so far. 7 and 9, average offense, average defense.
Yeah.
What do you think?
No, I think that's exactly what they are. It's the old Bill Parcells thing that, you are what your record says you are. I'm not always somebody who subscribes to that theory. In this case, I am. Dwight Howard is Dwight Howard, and like, it's been a long time since he was a difference maker for a team, and more often than not in recent memory, we've seen him act as a drag on teams and their progress. I really, really like Nick Batum. He was out to start the season. I think that getting him back will be beneficial to them. Jeremy Lamb played pretty well in his absence, but I don't think that he's as versatile a player as Nick Batum. So now you can use Jeremy Lamb off the bench as sort of an offense guy. Same with Malik Monk. You don't have to rely on him as much. You could take his minute load down a little bit. Kemba Walker has been really good for them, but I just don't look at this team and think to myself, yeah, if they make it into the playoffs, I'd be surprised. And if they do, I think it's back end.
I thought Kid Gilchrist was going to be better than he is.
Yeah, I mean,
I did.
That shot, he just still hasn't gotten there with it.
I know it. I know. And obviously, he's 23 minutes a game. Like, I thought he would be a big minute starter. For sure. Even if he was just even if he was never like all-star, that he would be like an amazing role player.
Yeah. He just has not gotten there.
Right. All right. So we're kind of the same page on Charlotte. What about Miami? 26th offense, 14th defense. Such a weird season last year where they were like 10-31 and then 31-10. And I think there was a real wonder, hey, which one are they? Are they something in between? They're ravaged by injury. So we knew they weren't nearly as shitty as their record the first half of the season. But there was also a sentiment like they ain't as good as their second half of the season record either. And now you look and it's kind of like a mix, right? They're right around 500, right? So they're not the team that was horrible. They're not the team that was unbelievable. That barely missed the playoffs like the last week of the season. They're just a 7-9 team. What do you make of them? Were you sold by the second half of last year that they could actually be pretty damn good?
I was, and they have the exact same record as the Hornets. So this is where I go the opposite way on. I'm not sure the record is indicative of their actual talent. You look at their roster, they've got a lot of interesting pieces. I really like Hassan Whiteside and Goran Dragic. James Johnson has been really good, and they've got players. Richardson started off really slow. And I think eventually he's going to find his shot. He was such an instant offense guy for them and could do so many different things that I think that that's been sort of an impediment on the way that they've started this year. So I like them to sort of like kick it into gear in the same way that we're seeing, and we're going to get to these guys in a second, but in the same way that we're starting to see the Magic regress a little bit to the mean, I think we're going to see the Heat actually play to the level of their talent, which I think is greater than their record has indicated.
All right, let's move to the Magic next, because they are a team that at the beginning of the season, you looked about 2 weeks in, and half their guys were shooting like 60% from the field and 50% from three, right? So we knew there is going to be some regression to the mean. And still, even today, after the amount of games that they've played, they're 8-9. So 17 games into the season, Evan Fournier shooting 43% from three. That's not that shocking, but Aaron Gordon's been a 44% three-point shooter, and Nikola Vucevic has been a 41% three-point shooter. Jonathan Simmons has been 39, which I think honestly is rather sustainable. But we have seen, like, as a team, they were just shooting the cover off the ball at the beginning of the team. We knew there was going to be some regression. In fact, O'Connor even wrote about this, like, what is going to happen with these teams that at the beginning of this season have started off much better than maybe we would have previously expected. There's going to be some regression, but I do think they're pretty good and way better than I thought they were going to be.
Yeah, I'm starting to sell my Magic stock at the beginning of the year. I really love the idea of Aaron Gordon. And we saw this at the end of last season in the same way we saw the Heat really killing it. At the end of last season, Aaron Gordon asserted himself. He was shooting the ball extremely well. It wasn't just the Aaron Gordon that we would get in all-star games when he was hyper athletic and he was dunking the ball and it was an exhibition and then he'd disappear. We saw a full, like, really developed game where he was playing inside out. He was using his athleticism. He was rebounding well and passing and shooting the three. And we're getting that same Aaron Gordon this year. I'm on board with Aaron Gordon. I like the idea of Nick Vucevic shooting threes. I didn't think it was possible. He came out of nowhere and did it. And I also like Jonathan Simmons signing with them. However, the shooting I don't think is sustainable as a team. They were shooting so well at the beginning of the year to win some of those games. And KOC wrote about it. And also our buddy Ben Falk from Cleaning the Glass, who used to be an executive and handled a lot of the analytics for the Philadelphia 76ers, now has a new site. He wrote about the same thing and just went, look, if you look at their numbers, this is highly, highly unusual. And I'd be shocked if they were able to keep it up. And they haven't been recently. 3-7 over the last 10. I think, 500 to sub 500 is about right for the Magic.
Let me tell you one thing that I noticed when I saw them in person. The rookie, Jonathan Isaac, who I know you're selling that side. Do not sell stock in this kid, though. This kid has a chance to be outstanding. And I have this poster in my office from years ago. The Bucks gave it out at the game, and it was this poster that has Giannis, and it's two photos of Giannis, right? One is it's like a full-size poster, and on the left, it says draft night, right? And they've got him in his draft hat, and it says like 6'8". And then it says June, and then it says November, and it's got a picture of him next to him, and it says 6'10.5" or something, right? It's this idea that he grew 2.5 inches since they had drafted him. And I'm telling you this Isaac kid, when I saw him in person, for anybody that hasn't seen this kid in person yet, he is so tall, John. And I promise you, like if he was 6'10" when they drafted him, he has grown since, because they list him at 6'10", and when he was out on the court, he towered over everyone. He was guarding Chandler Parsons at one point. He towered over Chandler, and Chandler's 6'10".
Yeah, Chandler's
and I'm like, how fucking tall is this guy?
Yeah, he's a big dude.
This guy, he's wiry as all get out, but he is, he is a real freak of nature in the sense that it's shocking to see him and realize how tall he really is. And he moves like a damn gazelle. I'd buy some stock in him for sure.
They could use some nice young talent because they obviously missed on Hazonia. And then, you've got Alfred Payton, who, as Kevin Clark likes to say in our Ringer Slack, continues into whatever year this is for him to just dribble into the teeth of defenses. Like, I guess that's his thing. I wonder when they're going to move on from Alfred Payton. It's a weird mix of players. If Isaac pans out, good for them, man, because they really need somebody like that.
Let's touch on the Pacers. I think shocking to people that they have the 6th ranked offense and the 18th ranked defense in the league. I don't think many people saw the 6th ranked offense coming from the Pacers. I mean, that just being what they are so far, it has to drive Nate McMillan just absolutely insane. I mean, you see some of these guys, right? Whether it's the Van Gundys or the Lionel Hollinses or the Nate McMillans or like the old school guys. They're just all having to leave what they've always believed in, right? by way of, this is the way the NBA is now. This is the pace and space and shooting threes and offense. And so I know Nate McMillan probably cries himself to sleep every night after watching 118 to 114, but they have certainly overachieved, and Oladipo and Sabonis have made that Paul George trade look way less bad than we originally expected.
Victor Oladipo. This is the Victor Oladipo that was promised coming out of Indiana. I can't believe how good he is. I always liked him with Orlando. I thought that I understand why they made the move. I understand why Oklahoma City made the move. I didn't like the return that the Magic got, but the Victor Oladipo that we saw in Orlando was pretty good. The one that we saw next to Russell Westbrook wasn't, because he was basically, hey, kid, go stand over there until I'm done dribbling the ball, and I might pass it to you every now and again. That was a really bad fit for Victor Oladipo and basically like most of the supporting cast last year. This Victor Oladipo, where he's got some agency and he's got some ownership of the offense and he can utilize his skill set, he has been wonderful. He is every bit the reason why they're 10-8 and not say 8-10 or worse than that. He's been killing it. You got Bojan Bogdanovic, who's just been a sniper from 3-point range. And, Miles Turner as a young guy, and you mentioned Domantas Sabonis, who was filling in while Turner was out. They've got some interesting Look, I didn't expect anything from the Pacers. This is far and away better than I anticipated.
And it was a couple of weeks ago, I was sitting by Tayshaun Prince at a game, and I said to him, there was, the scoreboard came up and it said that the Pacers, they had won a game, like whatever it was, 121 to 116. And I mentioned to him, I said, listen, I said, McMillan has to just like cry himself to sleep every night. Like I said, and he this is what he said. He said, you have no idea. So he played on Team USA when McMillan was one of the coaches. Mm-hmm. And he said, when I was one of the coaches, he is such a defensive guy that they would get in these meetings. And he was like, him and Mike D'Antoni, like literally almost fist fought, like in the locker room, like all the time, because D'Antoni would come in there and he'd be like, all right, guys, like they'd be playing whoever. And he'd be like, I want you to go out there. I want you to score 150 tonight, right? That's going to be our goal. We're going to score 150. And McMillan would be like, listen, when we play against Spain and we play against Greece and we play against these teams, we've got to be able to defend. And Mike D'Antoni would say, nobody is fucking scoring 150. Like, I promise, I don't care if it's Greece, if it's Spain. Like, nobody's scoring 150, Nate, right? And they would just like battle back and forth. And it was this idea that they were polar opposites with the way they viewed basketball. Polar opposites. And now I see McMillan's team and the way they're playing, and I can't help but get that out of my head. I know he resents this so much, but they're having good success.
They're playing. I mean, Look, they're ninth in pace this year, so they're playing at a pretty good speed. And like I said, they're bombing away from three. And look, it's worked out for them so far. I don't know about you. As I said, I didn't have any expectation for this team whatsoever. So this is all to the good. They're playing with house money here.
Yeah. All right, two more real quick. The Bucks. As we said, I was surprised that the Pacers are sixth in the NBA in offensive efficiency. Also surprised that the Bucks are 22nd in defensive efficiency, given how much Jason Kidd does care about that end of the court and this freakish, no pun intended, length that they have all through that roster. They're 14th in offense, which is middle of the pack.
Right.
22nd, so bottom 10 in the league in defense, and they are 8-8 so far. I would certainly say through 16 games, especially given that Giannis, for a good portion of that, has been possibly the best player in the league. It's underwhelming, right?
It is a little underwhelming for a 500 record, 23rd in net rating. I want to see Eric Bledsoe be incorporated, over a longer period. We've got a very small sample size right now. My thing is, I look at these pieces and I think this should be a really good team. You mentioned Giannis. He's an absolute monster. He's unguardable. He does so many things well, shooting obviously from distance, not one of them, but everything else, he's just like a virtuoso. And you add in Eric Bledsoe, who I love and I think has been one of the more underrated players for quite a long time in the NBA. You've got Chris Middleton, who can shoot from the outside. Tony Snell, fine. He can hit some three-pointers when you need them. And eventually you're going to get Jabari back. These are not bad players. I look at the Eastern Conference and I like them better than the Pacers. The Pacers have a better record right now, but I like them better than the Pacers. I like them better than the Knicks. This should be a solid playoff team.
Last one, the Knicks. Porzingis. I mentioned that Giannis has been one of the best players in the league. Porzingis is first in the NBA in blocks. He is fourth in scoring in the NBA. And the Knicks offense, I think, is 11th right now, which I cannot believe. So is this going to go the wrong way on the Knicks, or are they a possible 500 tick over 500 team?
Look, I don't think once they decided to just go with KP, I think a lot of people expected the Knicks to take a massive step back in hopes of building for the future. You mentioned that they're 11th in offense, they're 15th in net rating. They've 2 games over 500. I don't understand how it's happening because offensively, you've got Kristaps Porzingis. Okay, fine. And then after that, you're relying a lot on Tim Hardaway Jr. And every time I see him step on the floor, and I know that there are people who like Enes Kanter. Every time I see Enes Kanter step on the floor, I go, oh yeah, Enes Kanter plays for the Knicks. He does. Yep. He scores some and he rebounds, and that is it. Right. He doesn't do anything else. I guess he's a good team guy, but like you're relying on Courtney Lee and Doug McDermott, and like Jarrett Jack is still out there. Frank Ntilikina, Frankie Smokes. I think he's a good defensive player, but he looks still very lost on offense. Where are you getting offense from long term on this team? And it sounds like I'm the only one still talking. I think we ended up, we've still got me and Isaac Lee, but I think we lost Chris Vernon due to some technical difficulties. So not only did I fill in for KOC, now I'm filling in for Chris Vernon. So I think that's probably where we're going to wrap it up here. We wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Thanks so much for listening to the Ringer NBA show. The guys will be back next week. See ya. Support for today's show comes from Hotel Tonight, an awesome app for finding and booking great deals at great hotels. No crashing on an air mattress in your childhood bedroom this year. Instead, lock down your holiday plans with Hotel Tonight. Book a room up to 7 days in advance everywhere and up to 100 days in advance in certain major cities. Or wait until the last minute if that's more your speed, and you can make a break for it when Uncle Tony starts talking politics. Whether you need a room for tonight, the holidays, or beyond, you definitely want to download the Hotel Tonight app.